Hello and welcome. I'm Beck, yin yoga teacher, herbalist, and brand new homeowner. And I want to share with you how I found and bought my dream 5-acre homestead. I just want to share a little bit of a background story just so that there's some context as to how and why I have been moving through this process of buying a little 5-acre homestead. So prior to this, my partner and I had also lived on a 5-acre off-grid homestead, which was so beautiful and something that we were creating together over those 6 years. And let's be honest, he was doing most of the hard yakka and I was doing the fun jobs like sowing seeds and harvesting the fruits of the labor. So I have already had experience living on the land and communing with the earth. And so once I left this place that we were building together, I knew that I wanted to get back to nature. I knew that I wanted to create my own homestead. And so it's just been a matter of trying to find something that suited my needs and what I was after. And it was quite the journey over 9 months trying to find exactly what I'm looking for, which is why I thought it would be a really nice idea to share what I've been moving through, just to share some little nuggets of wisdom, because I know if you've never been through this experience before, you may not know where to start. So first things first is we need to start with research. So that's what I did. I found somewhere else to live temporarily, and I was on realestate.com.au day and night researching, trying to find a property that was going to suit my needs. So I can only speak to the property market here in Queensland, Australia, but for this time and this state in Australia, the property prices have absolutely boomed, especially in the last 4 years or so. And so the prices have boomed and the properties that are available are very slim. And so it was, a really interesting and eye-opening journey. So I spent day and night researching properties, looking at all the local suburbs here, but also suburbs in other areas in the state as well, just to kind of get up to speed on what's happening with the market and comparing prices in different suburbs and things. And what I found was that different suburbs throughout the state have vastly different price ranges. And what I worked out was certain suburbs in certain areas were deemed more valuable than others. And so it depends on sort of like where you're at with things. So if you have quite a large budget to work with, you might have more properties to be able to choose from. But for me, I was working with quite a modest budget, and I found that the number of properties were more limited in that price range. And also the properties are just moving so quickly in all price ranges, but particularly in these more modest price ranges, the properties are moving so quickly. And so what I did was I researched, I went and looked at so many properties, vacant land, properties that already had dwellings on them, just to get a feel for what was out there, and also to get a vibe check as well, because it's important. This is not my chook, this is my neighbour's chooks that keep coming over here. So yeah, just to get a vibe check, because it's important that it feels right as well. You can look at it on realestate.com and it might tick all of the boxes, but you need to sort of get a vibe if it feels right. So that's what I was doing. And I did come across a piece of land. It was about 3 acres that I really wanted. It was part of a rural estate that was still in development. So I was waiting somewhat patiently for this property that I really had my eyes on and it felt like the right one. And so this was about in February that I found this property, and I decided I was going to put a holding deposit on it and wait. But there were lots of delays along the way, weather related and otherwise, that were holding up the process. And at the time I was feeling quite frustrated with this because, as you can probably tell, I was really keen to get going and creating my new little homestead, and I didn't exactly know what that would look like or where it would be or how it would come about, but I was keeping myself open. So I did put the holding deposit. I was waiting patiently, but in the interim I also was keeping myself open to other options, because although creating your dream home from scratch on vacant land is such a wonderful thing to do, it's also a lot of work. And so what I was doing was keeping myself open to a property that was already established with everything that I needed. So I was still looking at vacant land, I was still researching the market every single day. And what I was really looking for was a certain price range. I wanted some sort of little dwelling of some sort, ideally 3 water tanks and the septic tank and a pump. And that was sort of like the main things, the main boxes that I needed to tick. So as we were going along, still waiting, still had the holding deposit on this other block, and there were a few properties that were sort of like almost right but not quite right. And as I mentioned, particularly in the more modest price ranges, they were just going like that. And so I had come across this other property in one of the rural suburbs here where I lived, and I was just driving by and I saw the for sale sign out the front, and I hadn't seen this property online, so I was curious and I contacted the agent, and he told me, unfortunately, the property is already sold. And I was like, of course, because that's what the property market is like at the moment. But I did say to him, look, if you do have any other properties similar in nature, could you please let me know, because you know, like, this is what I'm looking for, and you know, I haven't found the right one yet. And so not too long after that, he replied and he said, look, I have this property coming up, these are the features. He listed them all. He said it's not really the same as this property, but you know, it's in the similar area, all the things. And from what he told me, because I had been researching and driving around and looking for properties, I had a pretty good idea that I knew which one it was. So I went for a drive, I had a look, there was no for sale sign yet, but I said to him, look, is this the property that you're about to list? And he said, yes, it is. So I had already had a vibe check. I already knew, well, I thought I knew which property it was. So because I knew you know, how quickly things are moving in the market, I didn't want to delay at all. I didn't want to hesitate. There's no room for hesitation in a hot market like this. And so I said to him, can I view the property? Can we organise an inspection? And even though the property wasn't quite at that stage yet, it wasn't ready, they hadn't even done photos or anything like that, I said, look, can we please organise a viewing, because I just wanted him to know that I was really interested, because the real estate agents like that as well. So we arranged a viewing for a few days later, and I got there, and here, when I arrived, I could tell that, you know, it needed a little bit of love. Even though the dwelling here is only about 2 years old, it wasn't, you know, as polished as it could be. The yard still needs a lot of work now. It's something that I'm just progressively moving through. There's weeds everywhere. It wasn't, you know, there was just sort of things everywhere. So despite that though, I could see the potential. I could visualize what it could look like if it had an owner that was tending to it and putting love and energy into it. So despite the outward appearance, I could see the potential. So I went about my life for the next couple of days while I thought about it and I felt into it. And I thought, you know what, I think this is the one I've been waiting for. Although there was a few logical reasons why I should not buy this property, it felt right, and it felt like I've been, by this point, it'd been 7 or 8 months. I'd been researching, I've been doing all the things, and I thought to myself, no, this is the one I've been waiting for, and there's no time to hesitate. There's no point in me like overthinking it too much, because it's ticking all the boxes. It's the right price range. It's got the 3 water tanks, the septic, the house, the pump, all the things. So I thought, look, let's just do it, and if it's meant to be, it will be. So I emailed the agent, I put in the offer, the owner and I negotiated a price, and then before I knew it, we were signing contracts. The contract date was signed on the 7th of the 7th, which I found really beautiful, because I always look for signs and symbols and synchronicities from the universe. So that was a beautiful angel number signal for me. And so throughout that process, there were a few hiccups on the way, between signing the contract and doing all the other things, all the finance, all of the technical, legal things that need to happen when you buy a property. So over those weeks, there are lots of hiccups. There are a few challenges that I could foresee with me purchasing this property. With that being said, I was holding the vision. I was having faith. I felt in my heart that somehow it was going to happen, but it was very much after, you know, moving through a partnership separation, living in random places, trying to find a home. Like, it was all very much a big roller coaster of emotions and very exhausting. But yeah, so it was all happening up and down, up and down. And then finally, when I heard that the finance was unconditional, I was stoked. I was over the moon, and I thought, wow, all of this time, all of the effort that I put in has finally paid off, and I'm so close to having my home again. And I just want to kind of make the point that, yeah, just not to ever give up, because yeah, for me, going through this whole process, like I said, I had no idea if it was going to happen, how, when, where, why. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but what I did do was I journaled on it every day in my journaling practice. I set intentions under each new moon, saying that I had already manifested my home. I visualized the property every day in my meditations, and so it feels like it was me already forming a relationship with the land here, and bringing my energetic frequency into alignment with the right property, which happened to be this one. And so I really want to point out to you, or just encourage you to not give up, because there were a few, like I said, quite a few, lots actually, hiccups that I had on the way. People telling me, no, we can't do it. This is what we need from you. And I was like, well, no, we're not doing that, and offering an alternative to that. And so I just want to reiterate to you not to give up, and also to, yeah, vouch for yourself, offer alternatives, and look for, here's some more chickens. Like I said, they are not my chickens. And just look for other ways. Like, I think especially when it comes to finance and all of those technical things, they have their boxes that they need to tick, and they have criteria that they need to meet. And so if you're a little bit out of the scope of that, like I definitely was, we need to kind of be creative, and we need to find other alternative ways to be able to call in what it is that we desire. So I wanted to leave you with some of my top tips on how to find your own property as well, if that's something that you are looking to do. So the first one is to do your research. Like I said right at the top of the chat, you have to research. So have a bit of an idea of what you're looking for, what suburbs you would like to live in, or even states, or maybe you want to move states. Just start researching. It does take a lot of time, it does take a lot of effort, but what's more important than having a beautiful home to live in? So make sure you're doing your research. For me, I was on there multiple times a day, checking in to see what the market was doing, what new properties had been added, and I feel like I learned a lot about real estate during this time. The second one is kind of linked to that, is starting to form a relationship or a rapport with the real estate agents. I feel like I was quite the pro at real estate by about the 7 or 8 month mark. And also, forming this relationship with the real estate agents. So the agents themselves, or even just calling the actual real estate agency and let them know what sort of property you are looking for. I have heard from several people, and just through my experience, that because the market is so hot at the moment and things are moving so quickly, that things aren't even making it to market. So that's what happened for me here with this property. The woman, the seller, was not even kind of ready to sell yet. The property wasn't ready. There was no photos. It never ever made it to market. And that's what's been happening. So if you form those connections with the real estate, then you're already way in front of everyone else, because they know what you're looking for. If they have a seller who comes to them with a property, they can match you guys straight away before it even goes to market. And this can be a really good thing, because when it goes to market, obviously it's public, it's out on the internet, and they put signs out the front and all of the things. And so then there's a lot more interest. There are a lot more people, because properties are limited, competing for the same property. So then you have, people putting in offers, and this could potentially drive the price up. So I think this is a really good tip for you as well. Another tip that I wanted to share as well is that you might have to compromise a little bit. And so what I found, like I said in my research, is that other properties are more valuable, in air quotes, than others. So you might have to purchase a property. It might be everything that you need, but it might not be the exact location or the exact suburb that you need. So you might need to go more on the outskirts of where you are kind of wanting to live. So you're still in the ballpark of where you want to be, but it's a little bit out of the way. You might have a little bit more driving and traveling to do. So that might be a compromise that you have to make, especially if you're working with a smaller budget, to be able to get the property that you want. Another tip is to have your budget ready to go, so you know what you can spend, and also having your finance pre-approved. So this is a step that I missed, and I think that it's quite valuable to be able to do this. So if you already know that you're looking, sit down with your budget, contact the mortgage brokers and your bank, whoever you want to work with, or maybe you don't need finance. But just having that budget in place, know what your borrowing capacity is if you are financing, and having that all ready to go, because obviously having the finance, if you are working with finance, that's a whole process in itself too. So if you are going shopping with real estate and you've already got that all ready to go, then you can then put in your offer straight away, and that's going to put you in front of any other potential buyers as well. Another thing that I wanted to share too is that during this process, I listened to a podcast where a buyer's agent was being interviewed. It was really interesting, and I learned a lot from that interview. But something that he said really stuck with me, and what he said was that you're not necessarily looking for the dream home, but you're looking for the dream home right now. And yeah, he also said people aren't really doing the whole buy the dream home and stay there for like 20 years. It's not really a thing anymore. And so what he meant by that was that like I said before, you might have to compromise on one or two things that you're kind of looking for in your property. But then what you can do is so use that as a way to get into the market, and then you can use that as leverage. So getting the equity from that home and using that to buy your next property if that's what you choose to do. So I really loved that idea, and just maybe not loosening the grip a little bit on what it is that you think that you want. Obviously you want it to be comfortable and like what you want, but just being a little bit more fluid and open and flexible with that as well. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is, or just encourage you to do is to get creative. And what I've seen here where I live people are doing as well is, especially if you're not working with a really big budget, you can get a little bit creative. So what I've seen some people do here is they buy the land, right? So they might buy, you know, a couple of acres, maybe it's around like the $200,000 mark, something like that. Maybe they can afford that price for now. And what they've been doing is getting what they need. So a couple of water tanks and that sort of thing. And you can look into other options. So you don't have to build the big dream home. What you can do, and this is what I was researching too when I was trying to figure out which way I was going to go, was I started to research tiny homes. I started to research how much I thought it was going to cost to maybe build a little cabin. So how much I thought that was going to cost, building materials and labor, and then the water tanks and all the other things. Shed homes are really popular as well, and some people are even just living in caravans, and obviously it's not forever, it's just for now while they're kind of getting themselves set up. So there are other ways that you can do this, and it's a temporary measure just to get you to where you want to be. If you want to be out of the suburbs, you want to be out in the country, you want to be on land, you want to have your veggie garden or whatever it is that you desire, there are other ways. You don't have to follow the traditional path. But what I will say with that is that you might just need to check with your local council as to what the regulations are around that. So that's just a little side note as well. So this is the bulk of my journey. This is the bulk of what I've learned and the bulk of my tips. So I really hope that's helpful for you. I felt like, you know, I didn't really know where to begin with this whole process. It had been about 12 years since I'd bought my last property. So, you know, a lot had changed since then, and I'd never bought acreage before. My previous homestead was purchased by my partner, so that was all new for me as well. So I really hope that's helpful. For me now, my plan is I'm all moved in, which is really exciting. It feels really nice after living out of boxes for the last 9 months. I'm really someone who needs their home. It's the most important and sacred thing for me. I need to be grounded, and so that's my plan now, is to root myself here, to ground myself, to earth myself, to commune with the earth, to start to heal my heart again. And you know, the next thing I'm going to do, like I said, the yard needs a little bit of love. I've already started. I'm going to do a really big cleanup, and I've been here for a week or two now, and I just wanted to wait before I did the veggie garden, because I've been trying to suss out where the sun and the shade is, because that's really important as well. So I figured out the shady spots over here, the sunny spots over there. So now I know where I'm going to pop my veggie garden. So this is just the beginning of me setting up my brand new little homestead. I would really love it if you joined me on this journey as I ground myself here, as I set up my homestead, and yeah, create everything that I really want to here. So I'd love for you to join me on the journey. You can subscribe to my channel to stay updated. If you have any questions at all as well about this process, send me a message or leave a comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, because I really want to help other people to get their dream home as well. So if you're still here, thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and I'll see you again in the next video.